don't look at things by per day or even per week, but more month, years, decades, right? So if you want balance and you want to travel, I think both you and I have been fortunate because we worked for it. It was not handed to us to have a lot of life experiences that will be considered balance for a lot of people, right? Going on these fantastic trips, spending time with family. All of the speakers at EO and at College Works had one theme: do what you need to do now so you can do what you want to do later. And that's one piece of advice that has been life changing.
Welcome to the show, and don't forget to subscribe. We've got the Chief Activation Officer at Auraria Higher Education Center. She's been an entrepreneur. She's been a trainer of entrepreneurs. She's been a mentor. You can find her at LinkedIn. Her name is Lulu Lantzy, and you can find her at LinkedIn. She's going to talk about using past jealousy to fuel accomplishments and how to become more productive and let go of the jealousy. But we both started that way. She's going to talk about where her grit came from, and we're going to get into real balance, which basically means work now so you can be balanced later. Welcome to the show, and welcome to the Edge of Excellence. Well, Lulu, thank you so much for making time to come out of the mountains. Denver's 40 under 40, women's chambers, top 25 most powerful women in business, Techstars mentor, member of the Asian Chamber of Commerce, Chief Activation Officer, lots of titles you've had, lots of years, but the one that strikes me the most is most powerful woman in business. I'm like, of course, always been that way from day one. Thank you for coming on the Edge of Excellence.
Anytime for you, Matt.
Well, thank you. And before we even dive into all the stuff you've done and how you got there and all your tips, what is your definition of excellence?
Great question. I think after decades of trying to recruit it, trying to develop it, and as a mom, really trying to build it in my kids, I think it's when someone push above and beyond their potential and skill set and is a constant learner. In my College Works years, I remember having all these students, huge talents, and some, are 9 out of 10 on raw talent. Then it becomes, what do they do with that? And I've always felt more drawn as a mentor to the students that even if their talent level is at a 7 or 8, but they push themselves to a 10. To me, that always struck me as the definition of excellence, as this lifelong learning concept that really originated for me during my years at College Works.
Wow. So my wife was telling me, and I guess I don't go on social media that much, I didn't know she follows you on social media.
I follow her back.
So she's seen the kids. I thought it was all travel because you do a ton of traveling, right?
I do. It slowed down a little bit since I have 2 little ones, but still going.
So I said, yeah, I'm doing the podcast with Lulu. Jill said, oh, she's not traveling with all those kids. I said, wait a second. She doesn't travel with her kids. She doesn't travel with her husband either. She goes by herself. And Jill said, no, it's always with Gavin and the kids. Is that right?
Oh, no. I totally ditch them.
Oh, you do? Okay, that's what I remember. Because when you're successful, you need to have a successful marriage. You need to have your own life. Your spouse needs to have their own life, and the kids will definitely have their own life. But you got to have these breaks, and you got to work on yourself. And one of the things you love to do is travel all over the world. How many countries have you been to?
Oh my God, I've lost count, Matt. That's a good question. I have to get on that.
What do you think?
More than you.
No way it's more than me.
Bring on the challenge.
I'm 73. 73 countries.
Oh, less than you.
Many of them double digits. But you and I went to Saudi Arabia together.
Yes, we did. We had so many good memories, Matt. I have such a great collection of photos of you and I traveling, and you.
Okay, well, we're not going to get into those. I forgot about that. But going to Saudi Arabia, pretty brave. That was an interesting trip. I remember getting locked out of the meeting room because there were females in our group, and the hotel staff did not believe we had permission from the royal family to have a co-ed meeting. And do you remember sitting outside? Of course, you remember sitting outside for an hour outside of those doors before being allowed in to have our meeting.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to go from private planes and all those wow experiences to sitting outside the meeting. I also remember trying to purchase things at the market and not being able to talk to the salespeople because they refused to speak to a woman.
Wow.
That was interesting too.
Wow. Okay. So interesting experiences that have made you who you are. And you've been pretty consistent for all I've known you. You've always been a go getter. You've always been kicking butt. You've always been one of the leaders. And it doesn't surprise me that you've were the head of at Emily Griffith. You're the chief of at, how do you say the Higher Education Center? Ariana?
Yep, Auraria. Close.
Auraria. I didn't say it at all right. Doesn't surprise me because you always rise up to that level of mentor, leader, chief collaborator. It just always seems to happen as long as I've known you. So let's go way back into high school. I know you went to University of Michigan, which obviously means you did really well in high school. Where'd you go to high school? What was life like? And were you trying to get ahead? Was it conscious or was it accidental?
Yeah, let's go back way far in the memories. I went to Wall Lake Western High School in Michigan, suburbs of Michigan. Now that I'm older and I have kids, I reflect a lot on, things that really impact who you become in the future. I immigrated here with my parents when I was 9. And I think that's why I was drawn to entrepreneurship, despite the fact back then I didn't really know what that meant. But it's this whole building something out of nothing and building your American dream that really resonated with me because I saw it throughout high school. So I did do well in high school. I was the kid that had a whole lot of jobs, was always involved after school because honestly, we couldn't afford internet or cable. So it's really kind of boring to go home. And I also didn't have rides. So it's more fun to just be busy all the time. And some of these habits that you build in high school and all the habits that I thank College Works for really contributed to who I am. And I think, what I try to do as a parent now is how do you build grit in the next generation, right? Because mine came from having to fight for things, right? Working out of necessity and whining about it, of course, because I was young and friends of mine got cruises. And in the summers at Michigan, I had to have, 3 jobs and others could travel to Europe and insert some jealousy and bitterness. But, I think in the long run, which is also why I travel so much, it shaped a lot of that motivator since I had it in my role models at home and at College Works.
So you and I share that in common as well. I didn't have a bunch of money and other people around me did. My parents somehow figured out the vacations because my mom was English and I had to go back to England. I'm sure you went back to China a couple times, but there's that chip on your shoulder, right? And my buddy says he loves to hire people he won't hire people that don't have chips on their shoulder. He says, don't waste a good chip on your shoulder. So you're having to fight for things and there's this little jealousy. And I don't like jealousy either, but that jealousy of a couple individuals that had power over me in high school, maybe you want to have that power. That jealousy of a few people that had better cars and better things, maybe you want to have those things. That jealousy of achievement, maybe. Made me want to achieve. And then the travel thing, it was a moment where I sacrificed the travel and I said, I'm going to do this every year for the rest of my life. And I did. So we have this jealousy, but I want to ask you, how did you take it from this destructive jealousy? Like I get happy for people now, but back then maybe I was jealous. How did you take the jealousy and turn it into constructive process and and create constructivity out of it? All this learning that you've had, all these experiences you had, how did you get it out of the negative?
I think, that old saying, you are who you surround yourself with is really true. I am such a College Works champion because I, got recruited when I was 19. I was a sophomore at Michigan. And you worked with me for years. You know that I'm pretty spirited, which is, by the way, the nice way to describe my daughter is she is spirited and passionate. They have a book about spirited children. And I went, wait, is that why people have called me spirited my whole life? You're right. This energy, this motivator, guided correctly is such, to me, a huge win. I can also see how it can become destructive. I was fortunate to have the College Works people around me. In some of the previous podcasts, everyone talks about the friendships and the relationships. I think to be destructive in College Works, it moves so fast that you can't do it, right? I mean, you will literally implode because there's too many things happening where you can choose to be optimistic, you can choose to be pessimistic, but there's like 5 of them happening per day, right? A painter quit, a client's upset. It rained and it washed away the entire left side of the house with paint dripping down the bushes. You can cry, which I did. You can laugh, which sometimes I did. You can scream, which I also did. And that's why some of those friendships last forever, because you scream, cry. I'm sure we did plenty of other unhealthy things to relieve stress, but it really shaped my optimism because I've seen what it doesn't do when you're destructive to yourself. Because I'm spirited, Matt, I'm sure you, Jeff, and the partners, Spencer, everyone that's worked with me will tell you that it took Lulu years to learn this lesson. But you'll be proud that the fruits of your labor, now that I'm no longer with the company, is blossomed into, I hope, an optimistic person. So I thank my time and all of my experiences, and frankly, all the good and bad memories in a good way, for honing in this optimism that's necessary for success.
So you're conscious of it, right? You have experiences and you want to do better, you want to be the best, you want to kick butt, and you've been in EO forever. You've seen so many speakers, you've read so many books. You basically lived on Necker Island with Richard Branson before you got married, which we're not going to get into that, but that was always a little strange. And you've trained yourself to let go of the negative and focus on the positive. And I want to stop at the word spirited, because I used to have a very spirited boy, and I would get on planes and do things, and I would feel embarrassed that people are judging me because my son's spirited. And Jill and I did not do the greatest job of handling that. And people would tell me, no, you want that spirited kid. You don't want the super quiet one. You want the one that's getting a little crazy. And I see parents on planes, and I'll congratulate them for their spirited kids. And I'm now at the age where I try to take people's kids from them because I like kids so much and they think I'm weird. But when Jill does it, somehow she gets away with it. And, allowing them to be spirited while still kind of controlling the dangerous part of it, I guess, is the challenge of parenting. And you learn that challenge on yourself first. You and I are spirited people, and we had to learn how to channel it in a way that was more constructive than whatever we were doing before. I remember you being strong. I remember you being opinionated. I remember you being diplomatic. And I remember you being really good at conversation and vocalizing. So you figured out a way to channel your spiritedness, or continue to channel your spiritedness. And as you're going through high school, I want to get back to high school. You were getting good grades. You're getting good grades out of probably drive, doing a bunch of jobs out of circumstance. And, I hated it too. I needed to do it. I'm so glad I did. And my kids didn't have that circumstance. I made them get those jobs, and they're better off for it too. But however you got there, you're working a lot. You're getting great grades, sports, music, anything else you were doing?
I think I did everything. Back to the concept of skill versus effort. I'm Chinese, and in my culture, the belief is that you can be, quote, a genius at anything if you put your mind to it. To my father's great shame, math was not one of those things that I chose, but I tried everything and put my hands to it. And I think that's a really unintentional positive consequence, is that, sometimes you enjoy things you're not good at, and through years and years of practice, you get better at it, right? So I played soccer in high school. I was in choir. I did performance arts. Student government's probably where I spent the most of my time. And I think that's the early signs of enjoying project management and making an impact, right? So I think all of the wide array of activities starting in high school, throughout college works and beyond, is kind of what really helped me. Quote, people talk about finding your passion and discovering your calling in life. You know how freaking hard that is when you're 18. We don't know what the callings are, right? So I think starting early and doing all these activities helped me narrow things down. And that's one of my key recommendations for the next generation, is don't be so afraid to try something, because sure, you may not like it. You might love it. You may not be good at it, but it might be something you enjoy, right? And life's too short not to at least check some of those boxes and try some of those things.
And I think you were doing all this stuff because you knew the end. You wanted to go to University of Michigan. You knew that you better have the grades and the jobs and the everything on there, and you better be the president of one or two of those everythings. So I would guess, knowing you, that consciously you were doing this for the next step. Is that right?
It was. I was actually trying to get to Harvard, but got waitlisted. Uh, so separate topic. I'm sure my parents can talk about it with you for hours.
So you had to settle on University of Michigan. And there's so many kids I hear I have two friends whose kids, one just got into University of Michigan and the other one's waiting. I mean, it's so difficult, such a great school. So you get into University of Michigan, a little disappointed yourself, which is funny. And I by the way, if you're a high school kid listening right now, it doesn't matter. I tell all the ones I help kids get into college now as a hobby. And I start off by going, don't listen to your parents. Don't listen to the school. They're all stressing you out. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're at a place where you can thrive, where you're going to find your peers, and you could be at Harvard and that's not the right mix for you, and find that another school is. It doesn't really matter. I will say, if you can go to one of the top 10 or 15 schools, it does help because different companies recruit out of there, but there's probably more people that went to number 20 school than the number one school that are crushing it in whatever field you're looking at. So it doesn't really matter, but you have this drive and you're aiming for the moon. And then you go into college, and you had to work in college too.
Oh, yeah. First, I just want to echo what you said. Kids, Matt is right. Matt is always right. It really doesn't matter in the sense that I think going to Michigan was my sliding door moment. When I look back, I don't think my life would have took me to college works, right? And it more to come, of course. I wouldn't have married the same man I did. My entire life would have been different depending on just that sliding door moment and the amount of stress I put on myself about exactly what school I got into. It's the experiences that you make of it, right? So I loved Michigan. If any Michigan alums are listening, go blue. And it's probably one of the best decisions I made. So, sometimes life takes you the way it's supposed to go. So at school, I did work a ton. Ironically, the only time in my entire life I worked, probably illegally young is when I started working. And freshman year, first semester, for like a couple weeks, I didn't work. I just went to school, and it was horrible. There was so much free time for an 18-year-old who don't know what to do with the free time. For the first time in my life, I realized that in high school, you're in classes from like 7 to 2:30. And then if you're active, you're on campus at school from like 2:30 to 6. And then, I worked weekends, I worked nights. All of a sudden I have like two classes on a Tuesday. And this is when the internet was booming, not to age myself, but gosh, you can build a whole lot of really bad habits when you're 18 with a whole lot of freedom and a credit card company waiting at your dorm with no concept of what happens to the interest rate. So I promptly got a job. You'll love this. I was a librarian and a waitress. I had multiple jobs throughout college, in addition to college works, and loved it far better. I was way more productive. My grades were better when I had more things to do.
So if you're listening right now, Lulu is driven. So the first step is get driven. So Lulu had pain she's running from. I had pain I was running from. I wanted to have more of the stuff that other people had. I didn't want to have the 3 jobs that my dad did, even though maybe working one job, I worked as many hours. But I was driven by that. And I was pulled by, the values my parents instilled in me, the morals I had. So if you're not driven, you got to stop and go, okay, what am I looking for? So Lulu and I were lucky enough to kind of have it laid out for us in high school. Other people, they're searching, and you search until you find that thing. And then when you're driven and you've got this goal in mind and you're beginning with the end in mind, it makes it easier. But there's also kind of a positive side to you. You were kind of checking the productivity boxes. I think there's a lot of people that are cool, just kicking it and feeling productive, playing video games or watching White Lotus, which I strongly recommend against. Why? Why the need to be productive? Why the need to just do more than everybody around you was doing?
I worked so much with students at College Works and even post, right? So I know we talked about this during College Works as well, is the motivation changes sometimes each generation, right? And I hear a lot of kids talk about the balance. and what is the meaning of life, and what are our goals, and maybe making I remember when I went to college, you want to make six figures, right? And ironically, that may not even be that much money nowadays. I don't think the two motivators are that different. You can be driven in many ways. One of the things I took out of college, Ricks, is don't look at things by per day or even per week, but more month, years, decades, right? So if you want balance and you want to travel, I think both you and I have been fortunate because we worked for it. It was not handed to us to have a lot of life experiences that will be considered balance for a lot of people, right? Going on these fantastic trips, spending time with family. All of the speakers at EO and at College Ricks had one theme: do what you need to do now so you can do what you want to do later. And that's one piece of advice that has been life-changing. When you're young, you think you're invisible, you have boundless energy, you can have an entire bottle of wine and be totally fine the next day. And now, I'm not going to disclose my age, but one glass of wine, I have 2-day hangovers, your energy drops. And by the way, you can tell this is from a person with high energy. Kids, your energy level, your obligations and responsibilities only gets bigger. It's the most freedom when you're younger, and we waste a lot of it, right? So I just want to share that I am very balanced. In fact, to Jill or whoever follows me on social, granted, social media is always the rosy colored glasses, but I never had a midlife crisis, knock on wood. Maybe it's coming in the next couple years, because I've done so much in my life, fun, business, and otherwise, that I never felt this regret. And now that I have a family and I want to spend time with them and I want to do things, I have put enough energy into building up my life in a way where I can do that, right? So put your energy into investing in your career, your life, your development early on, because when that energy goes away and you have 2 kids, 2 poodles, and a minivan, you don't have as
No,
much
you do
time.
not. No,
I
you
do not have a minivan. That was vetoed. I have
I just could never
40
see it.
minivan.
I could never see it. I could never see it. Well, good advice. Not every day, not every week, maybe not even every month. Years and decades for balance. Front load it, we call it now. Invest early. And it is just like investing. It's just like compound interest. If you invest in your life early, it compounds and people never catch up. So you did the College Works gig, you as a sophomore, then you were a district manager twice.
Yep.
And then to Pennsylvania as a VP.
Yep.
And then straight out of the Pennsylvania VP, you went to Emily Griffith.
I was an executive VP for years, and then to Emily Griffith.
Were
Yep.
you an EVP without a division?
No, I think I was one of the full-time EVPs at the time, with 5 or 6 divisions.
No, but did you run a division while you were EVP, or you
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay. So yeah, so you were so successful and so impactful. I think it's impactful is probably the right word, that you became one of the leaders of all the divisions. And then you retired from this and you met Gavin. Oh, we can't forget that. So you are some of your 5 closest friends, and you are not allowed to fish off the company pier. But funny thing is, both of us got married to someone we worked with at College Works. We've both been married a long time, happily. And by the way, if you've been married as long as enough, you've had some fights. So you've got perseverance, you've got hard work, and that's what it takes to stay married. And you're married to a wonderful dude. And he has a business as well, too, right?
Yes. First, sorry, HR, but we have so much fishing going on.
Well, the way it worked for me was I already knew my wife, so I'm fully clear and innocent. And I know that there's some reason why you're innocent too that we're not going to get into. But you found your friend circle, you found your part of your family, you fueled your passion, and then tell us what drew you over to Emily Griffith Technical College, and what does it mean to be the head of partnerships and innovation?
Yeah. So one of the things that I learned throughout my years at College Works, and again, narrowing down this, what is your passion? What is your calling? What fulfills you? And I also want to touch on the motivator piece. The cliche advice is cliche for a reason, because it's true, right? Find something you enjoy doing. So I have discovered that I really enjoy making impact and connecting dots together. One of my favorite parts about being an EVP or as a VP also is connecting all the dots, right? That you have to make sure you have this many interns going out, learning sales. If you hit this benchmark, here's how much revenue will come in. Here's all the dots you got to put together. It's one gigantic jigsaw puzzle. And I really enjoyed that process. So when the opportunity came at Emily Griffith Tech College, and also to Matt, your earlier point, there's a lot of opportunities for success, regardless if it's a 4-year education, what type of 4-year education, whether it's a 2-year education or trade school. I remember starting to recruit out of some of the more rural colleges, some of the community colleges. CollegeWorks actually was one of the first times I realized that, and we were ahead of our game, right? That success isn't in the ranking of your schools, what you do with a lot of the skill sets. So Emily Griffith Tech College is part of Denver Public Schools. It's a trade school, and it has programs ranging from healthcare to trades, and perfect timing because I was the head of partnerships right when the pandemic hit, and every job the school trained became dire for all the industries. So I think it's really fascinating. There's a lot of work happening right now in workforce, and hopefully for the students listening, it's helpful. Employers are looking for core values and skill sets, soft skills and hard skills, a lot of which I got out of my experience in CollegeWorks. A lot of the students at Emily Griffith Tech College got it because of similar work ethics that they had to have, right? It's a school where a lot of students are the first one to go to college in their family, their supporting family, they're adult learners. So I was really drawn to the student population because it reminded me a lot of the successful interns at CollegeWorks. So my job was to connect the employers to the students. This is the part that I think a huge opportunity for CollegeWorks back in the day, if I were there and we thought about this, is that, gosh, we produce some of the top talent out there. Not only did we filter through and find them, then we trained them. And then all of these amazing people, as I'm sure both of us well know, and to the alums listening, hello, they went out there and crushed it. So for 2 years at Emily Griffith, I talked to the employers every day about how to grow these people, how to hire these people.
So you're delivering value. So
yes.
you're the head of partnership because you're the one person that can deliver the most value to the partners.
I feel like I can speak on the both sides, right? Because I was the employer and I was the developer. So I felt like I spoke the education language, but I spoke the employer language. So I'm just also telling all of the potential CollegeWorks students or alums, whoever the audience is, every employer would be dying for all the skill sets that you've built in 6 to 8 months. It's crazy. It's so hard to find nowadays because things are changing. So that's what I did. I tried to develop some of the skill sets through experiences and help employers identify that in their workforce. And it was an amazing, fulfilling role at Emily Griffith to kind of connect the dots together.
And so the audience, by the way, the CollegeWorks gig is only in the Midwest now. We turned it into a different brand, different company on the East Coast, and then California sucks to do business in, so we don't do business here anymore. So a lot of our audience can't do the CollegeWorks gig. So maybe they can go do Southwestern Books, or they can go do study abroad and get an internship while you're there. Don't just study, because Lulu's right. This is an easy time of your life. You don't need to screw around all the time. Get an internship, get a job while you're studying abroad, make it a little harder on yourself. Fishing boat, canning in Alaska. You can go look up internships, rank them by how hard they are, not by the brand on their label. Because if you don't know how to run an internship, you're not going to be running a good internship. So it's more than just what your company name is. So you figured a way to really, really push yourself. And I like what you said, as an entrepreneur and as an executive in a big corporation. You like putting pieces together. You like figuring out how to prioritize what comes first. You like learning and focus on growing. You're always pushing above and beyond. So I like how you said it too. At CollegeWorks, we filter a bunch of people through the interview process that are like that, and then we train them. So if you're like that, you find a place to be trained. And so you take that skill set from years of being a business person. And this is one of the reasons I want to talk to you, because they say that people will change their career 6 times in our generation before they're done working. So you started off as an entrepreneur, you sold your shares in that division, and then became an executive in the company, helping other people. That's sort of a career change. Same industry, though. Is it really a career change? Then you go to a totally different career change in this head of partnerships where you're delivering value. And I like that too, because you deliver value. Your EVP job was delivering value to the people you worked with. You say putting together pieces, prioritizing, you're impacting. It's kind of subconscious for you. You go to Emily Griffith, you're delivering value. And even on this podcast, you keep pausing me. Hey, wait a second. Don't forget to deliver value. People are looking for people with soft skills. They're looking for people that shine with their core values. They're looking for people that work hard. And then I went and worked with these organizations to help you, meaning you, went to these organizations and help them figure out how to identify candidates and then instill that in their training programs. And what's different between that job and the new job as Chief Activation Officer?
So Auraria campus is a unique urban campus right in the heart of downtown Denver. And in education, one of the thoughts has always been, we saw this at college, Rick. Sometimes students can't finish something and higher education loses them because life happens, right? So wouldn't that be great if on one campus you have multiple options, a community college, Metro State University of Denver, CU Denver, it's all on the same campus. So a student can essentially work, get a degree, go back to work, go get another degree. So the campus was created so that 3 Hispanic serving institutions, 50% of the students are first in their family to go to college, can really complete the educational experience. And my role as the Chief Activation Officer, kind of like at Emily Griffith, is connect the campus to the community. So it's surrounded by every major attraction in Denver. Wouldn't that be great if there's companies that are located around the campus, right? And that students has access to cultural celebration. So it's a really exciting role that, in 5 years or 3 years or whatever it may be, it is one of the next fastest growing hubs in Denver where families, students, businesses, all the brain power in Colorado should be gathering on Auraria campus.
I've actually been to that campus before. And my kids both thought about going to CU Boulder and CU Denver, and I've been all around it. I didn't realize it was a link of all 3, but what a great idea. My daughter is leaving California, and she says, I am getting out of this effing bubble. There's no bubble there. That's a perfect community and also it's a great city campus. So I find that people want to live rural, they want to live city, or they want to live hybrid, and they tend to have their desire. If you're looking for a city campus, that's a cool place to go to school. And it's actually beautiful. It's a great city. And it is right in the thick of things. You got the baseball stadium, you got all the sports, you've got the Capitol Hill, everything's right there. You've got that train trolley thing that goes, so you have free transportation. And so now you're bringing the community onto campus, doing the same thing, linking them up with students. What other impact is the community looking to make on the campus that you're trying to facilitate?
I think just connecting all the dots together, right? I realize I have a theme to what I've been drawn to, besides the growth and pushing myself, but there is a theme of the enjoyment of things. I believe in building something and making it better than I left it. This is one of the core values that I think when you get older, if you experience enough things, you start to identify what makes you excited to go to work, right? I see so much potential, and if I do my role correctly, and if my team does it correctly, it will impact so many students. So your daughter first, she should definitely come to campus. I will tour her around whenever she's ready. But if this is done correctly, the campus experience will be so different for a lot of the commuter students at all the different institutions, right? Not only is Denver at the cusp after the pandemic of what happens next to the city, is it going to grow into the next large city? There is so much happening in downtown Denver for activation, and campus is part of it. So not only could I hope to be a resource for the city of Denver as it grows, but also for all these commuter students, first-gen students, to have a real experience in the true sense of that experience, right? So I think that's what drives me, is to be able to create that and make an impact with all the partners on the campus.
Yeah, I think you have a theme in your life of building win-win scenarios. Seems like we're win-win-win scenarios. Not just building, it's I mean, you can build on top of something and ruin it. You can crush people while you're building, or you can be that rising tide that lifts all boats. So you've got these few passions and in your personal history of coming as an immigrant that are all combining. But I bet the path to your job, and I'm just thinking of the people listening right now, it all sounds cool. Like, I want to do this too, but the path to this job is probably not the typical path. I don't think they go start a business, risk a bunch of money, sell the business, stick around for a bunch of years, and then slide in. I mean, I'm sure that having this understanding of business and understanding of how business works help with that head of partnerships and innovation at Emily Griffith. But when you look at the team you work with, what's the typical path to that for someone in the car right now, listening at 1.5 speed, wanting to do this too?
You hit the nail on the head. I'm actually part of this leadership development program that trains leaders for government. There's a lot of people that came from entrepreneurship, private companies, and then some that's been in government or public sector their whole life, right? So honestly, it's incredible to have someone that knows both. And I fell into it, to your point, but to all the people listening, a lot of the people in higher education or in the public sector has spent a lot of years there. Not to say they haven't left and come back, right? But for any of the students that are interested, all of the skill sets and entrepreneurship transfer, I'll give you some examples. The sales skills I gained at CollegeWorks or the project management, it is so needed because when you get to a complex organization, whether it's a private company or a huge tech company, or something like the city of Denver or higher education, is simply a more complex version of everything you did at CollegeWorks, right? So now there's 7 different departments to make something happen instead of 1 paint supplier and 2 painters and a client. But it's the same skill set, right? Except you got to start that. And you'd be surprised at how long it takes to gain the skill set in a traditional path. For a lot of my colleagues who are wonderful, project management, you know how scary it is to screw it up in a public sector and the amount of side effects that can happen when you make an oopsie.
Yeah, you're in the newspaper.
Yeah, you're in the newspaper. There's a mayor staring at you, right? So understandably, you're a lot less likely to want to risk making a mistake. So thank you, Matt and partners, for letting me make all of my costly mistakes on your tab and learn all of that. But I feel like by the time I was in my 20s, and again, not an age thing, but we've shoved so much experience into those years that, you know, if you want to translate it to what a regular quote path person, it would have taken them decades. And in CollegeWorks, it was literally.
So you're by far younger than all your peers.
Yes.
Yeah, because you pack so much experience into your young age. But if I look at what it is, you need to sit down. It's back to what we were talking about in the beginning. If you want to be driven, you got to know where you're going. Now, you may not know exactly where. So you were going up. And we'll go back to your try everything, the high school try everything. I'm going to try this weird CollegeWorks thing. I'm going to try this DM thing. I'm going to try this VP thing. I'm going to try this EVP thing. But the whole time you're going up, and if you want to follow Lulu's path, we don't know where you're going. You're just going, right? But you're looking for skills. What skills can I get? I'm going to try everything. What skills can I get? Pushing, persevering, treating everybody well, treating everybody with respect, building a name for yourself because that reputation carries with you too. And then you try something new and it's Emily Griffith and you're like, wait a second, I found my home. And that's how it works. That's how it works. You don't find your significant other. I mean, I know some people might, and my parents, no, some people might. And back in the day, it's a little bit different, but you don't find your significant other these days by just picking the first person and getting married and hope that it works out. And I really, this analogy just went really far south. I'm going to continue. We're not going to cut it, but you know how that could have gone south. You try different things. It's getting worse. And eventually you settle down.
I love this.
Eventually you settle down, and I'm changing the subject. So I also wanted to just hit you up with, and it's kind of your personal culture, who you are, but you're a Techstars mentor, and you're a member of, I'm assuming, a non-paid board with the Chamber of Commerce and the Civic Park Conservancy. Why? Why do you do that?
I think it's important to give back. I have to credit one of my mentors, Johnny Reeve, for this. He's always spent so much time with community. And, I do think I want to demonstrate not only for my children, but it's important, right? Back to one of the core values of leave things better than you found it. I think, the AAPI community is really important to me because of my experience moving here from China, thus the investment of my time and yes, non-paid board at the Asian Chamber and gosh, we need to edit that because I should probably know the name of the board I'm on. I am new. Okay, so going back and for Civic Park Conservancy, it's part of the entire downtown activation project that, of course, I'm very involved in. So anything, I will always take a phone call from a student at any of the institutions I worked at or at College Works, right? I pride myself and I hope a lot of my alums or DMs or interns that if they text me saying, I need your advice, I'll be there. And, I've had that experience, fortunately, throughout my life with mentors that would do that. So this is kind of my way of giving back. I'm getting cheesy with my old age here, Matt, but I'll say, whether it's you, Jay, Matt, or Spencer, your influence on me, bringing a lot of us into the entrepreneurship organization, whether you're aware of it or not, I'm sure you are, really has so many life-changing effects. And I'm just hoping to give some of it back to the community that now surrounds me.
And I bet the community that surrounds you feels the same way, that you hang out with the type of people that want to give back, that want to grow, that want to push, that want to try everything. And you end up, it's not cheesy. You said you're sounding cheesy. You're sounding wise. Wisdom seems cheesy when you're young, and everything that seems cool is not cool as soon as you're like 23 years old. And I could go through a long list of things I thought were cool in high school that I look back now and think, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed, right? So yeah, it's not cheesy at all. What sacrifices did you make throughout this that you look back and you're really glad you made that sacrifice and it wasn't really a sacrifice at all?
I think taking a risk is one of those sacrifices that really wasn't a sacrifice. I actually watched this happen at College Works, which is the boom of social media, the overflow of information, and in a lot of ways, it's great because as an information person, I enjoy the benefits of that. But also, it can make people go into freezing and analysis, right? So, I think a lot of us, when we first approach this opportunity to run a company and learn, I think back to the filtering comment, it really helps identify some of the mindsets of students, right? When you look at something and back to the career path of how do you decide what happens next, even if it seems random, all of my career paths are connected, which is you look at something and someone shared this with me. It's really just a couple questions. Is it good for me? Whatever that means, right? Whether it's money or growth. Is it better than what I've got? And why not? So it's really not that hard of a decision if you approach it that way. And I think the first quote sacrifice I've made, which is running this crazy company, I had in my very sarcasm included, wise 19-year-old mind that my entire life was planned out on paper, which it was. I was going to go to law school and be a lawyer and have 2.5 children.
I forgot this part of you.
Oh,
yeah. You were very rigid that way.
I had an Excel sheet for my second child, Matt, which it just
yeah.
the perfect timing for that did not happen. So, I think that was probably the first piece where my perfect quote timeline completely went out the window. And by God, what a perfect sacrifice quote that I've made, because, it led to everything else that happened. And I made a lot of my decisions based on those exact questions, which is, am I going to grow from this? Is it good for me? Okay. Is it better than what I've got in the sense of, just where am I going with it? And then why not?
Well, last question. Who made your wedding dress? Because when I think of wedding dresses, since your wedding, anytime I think of a wedding dress, I think of your wedding dress, which was so unique. And it's kind of the wedding. And my wife would say the same thing. She doesn't like her wedding dress. Your wedding dress is the best wedding dress we've ever seen. And I know it was some amazing designer. Was it Vera Wang?
Of course, one and only Vera Wang.
Major wedding dress. What a beautiful wedding dress that was. What a beautiful wedding that was. Lulu, thank you so much for making time to come on the show and sharing all your insights. I just want to give you one last chance. Is there anything we missed that you need to tell people?
Besides,
Everything
do
you just said.
college works.
Yeah, well, that's very kind of you. Any other pieces of advice? You've said a lot.
I'll just end with for all the potential college works interns that are so terrified, right? You're young, you're going to be successful. The worst thing that can ever happen is that it's a funny story of learning. So stop overthinking it.
Yeah, I'm going to say that. I'm going to hit you with that too. I had a kid come to me this weekend. I was in Michigan at a training, and he said, "Hey, I want to start this business. You have any advice for me?" And I thought, well, that's a interesting question. I got like 1 second. Do you have any advice? And I thought for a second. I said, yeah, be patient. And he said, well, I don't want to be on the road to the train to failure. I said, you're at your second day of training for a really difficult internship. I don't think you're on that train. Be patient. And I think that's similar advice to yours. You guys got a long life ahead of you. If you listen to this podcast one more time, just hit replay and listen to these steps about finding what's driving you, being productive, understanding about pushing above and beyond, being a constant learner. Try everything. I think you'll be okay. There's a lot of good options for you out there. Thank you again, Lulu. It's been wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you, Matt.